All right, we are here today with Justin at Sterling Homes, and we're talking about what happened in the first quarter of 2023. So, Justin, tell me what's been going on in the new build world.
Yeah, so I would say I'm going to date it back a little bit further. So beginning in April of 2022 is really kind of when we start to see a moderation in housing demand, of course, caused by increases in mortgage interest rates, and as well as just a general economic uncertainty. It's still too early, of course, to say like how the housing market conditions will be like, during the height of spring and summer. But we're definitely seeing some signs of growth and momentum in terms of sales, and so.
So,
Of
there are
course,
more
I think,
sales right now, like in the last 2 months. Have there been more sales?
yeah, it probably started actually the first week of January,
Okay.
and going through to today. The Bank of Canada paused interest rate increases, which I think has provided buyers, of course, with a little bit more confidence. The
Did you start to
consumer,
see more sales as soon as the bank rate decided not to go up at all compared
uh,
to like not the week before or whatever?
there was, I would say that there was two increases, I guess, one in January, and then
Yep.
then the pause button got hit. And so, generally speaking, before there's any announcements, there's generally a wave of buyers that try and kind of get in before that next announcements, just because they're unsure as to what's going to happen next. And then when
Right.
the pause button got hit, I think that consumer confidence just in of itself kind of actually increased. And so you can actually see this on the OECD website, where like consumer confidence in Canada like has definitely like hooked upwards. It was kind of going downward, of course, since, like I said, about Q2 of last year. And so we're seeing now this increase, and historically that number, once it does kind of take a turn and take a 180, it tends to rise quite drastically. And so we're optimistic, right? Cautiously optimistic. Pricing during like between 2019 through to 2022 was very volatile, right? And so generally
Yes.
speaking, people tend to shy away from buying when there's a lot of volatility. And so you see that
Mhm.
like in the cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or any of
Yeah, we're
those.
not going to even talk about that.
Right. But
Wait, so
those
is your
those
your
spaces
pricing
don't acquire mass like adoption
right?
because of the volatility. And so that's kind of for the first time, real estate is like steady Eddie, right? Over the last 120 years, it's just, you can kind of count on it increasing incrementally over time. But that volatility that we had seen over the last during the pandemic definitely scared, I think, some people away. And now that that has passed, and there's a little bit more certainty in the market, interest rates have paused. There's definitely a lot more confidence that we're seeing in buyers.
So
So
has your pricing at Sterling stayed pretty similar in the last 3 months? Have you stopped, or even like you said in April, things started to drop off in terms of sales? So yes, you were making adjustments, but when did you guys start stabilizing, or are you still decreasing or giving promotions right now?
yeah, so for the builder, we don't want to incur as much risk, right? And so we definitely there's risk in keeping homes, right? And so since May of last year, that's when the corrections really started to take place. And so the corrections within the market, within the new home building market specifically, have taken place over the last year. And so I think we're at a place now where we've definitely moved into a more stable, calm, and balanced market, which is just overall healthy and I think good for home affordability in general. So I think things have normalized. I believe that we're going to, as I mentioned earlier, like we're going to start seeing those small incremental increases as we've seen over the last 120 years in real estate.
Increases in price or value or
Yeah, so
sale?
I would say like you can buy with confidence knowing that you're not going to see a price drop. Um, um, where we've seen more recent corrections, if you will, would be on the land side actually. So the builders, we were the first ones to kind of drop and correct, if you will. And now what we're starting to see from developers and land developers is some rebates on lands that again is kind of creating a little bit more balance in the market and creating more affordability. So
So then it
that's
allows,
where
yeah,
we're
you
starting to
guys
see
to
in the
profit.
most recently in the last couple of months some of the price like decreases. So
Okay. And obviously, I know a lot of buyers, if they were shopping before pre-pandemic, they saw some crazy low prices, and you don't suspect they're going to return back to those pricing if they're waiting around for that, right?
I think actually one of the reasons why over the last 120 years, like real estate's continued to grow is, um, obviously that like, you can't replenish land; it's a non-renewable one, and secondly, it's hard to, or it's impossible to get ahead of inflation, right? And so while we saw volatility in certain markets, like in lumber, for example, where it was really volatile, across the board, our industry, just like every industry out there, has seen, you know, inflation take place over the last 3 years, and I don't suspect that to kind of change. And so I
the
think
inflation hasn't gone down. That's why the interest rates were going up to kind of correct that inflation issue. And I guess time will tell, because I know as of right now, there's a big question mark about the US, and that does affect our market eventually. So that's interesting to know that things are kind of more normalizing. I know for our clients, we stayed away from a lot of the new builds, not just for pricing, but just also the timeline stuff, like just the question mark. And I know with Sterling, you guys are spec. So if someone wants to build from scratch, that's like, and pick everything, that's not the kind of builder you guys are. So I like hearing from you guys, because you're actually investing your money into land and building. So you're kind of figuring out where the demand would be for people to buy. So in terms of, you know, that end of things, because you guys are spec, you guys changed your model to that recently, right? Like, it wasn't pre-pandemic. Were you still building customs, or did you make that adjustment during the pandemic? And then in the first quarter, are you seeing results from that change?
Yeah, so we did end up shifting or pivoting our model. This was actually pre-pandemic. The fact is, at a very like macro high level, what we've observed is we're not growing housing supply at the same rate of population growth in Edmonton. We have a federal government that has, you know, that is estimating pretty much 500,000 people coming into this country every year up until 2025. These are record-breaking levels of human beings coming to Canada, right? It's a great thing for our industry, and
even more probably to Alberta, because it's more affordable.
100%, yeah. Affordability, yeah, no doubt. But so yeah, population growth continues to favor our industry. So I think if you own real estate, you should definitely feel good about your investment that you've made, because ultimately you want to put your money where a city is growing in population. And if that is the case, you should see your real estate values growing. Federally, as I mentioned, really high numbers coming in, but we're also, as everyone knows, interprovincially, we're getting a lot of people coming in from Ontario and Vancouver as well.
And the migration from the different places. I mean, that's a lot of people who watch this YouTube channel are from Ontario and BC. And so they're watching the market, and a lot of them have come over here because of just affordability.